Sometimes you gotta stick to your guns. Do what you want. Stick to your mission. And other times, you have to listen. Those are the words of acclaimed film director and producer Malcolm D. Lee. And in a minute, we'll be diving into his business and a new book, The Best Man. It's a continuation of it. I can't wait to talk to this brother. You're entering the Enterprise Zone at the Nasdaq. Hello, everyone. This is Jabari Young, senior writer at Forbes, and I am at the Nasdaq MarketSite. And welcome to the Enterprise Zone. And I am joined by a special guest. I just told you who this brother was, Malcolm D. Lee. He is the film director, producer of the Best Man series, now a book that's coming out. Spike Lee's cousin, future Forbes BOK member, who knows, man? Malcolm, thank you so much for making a trip. I know you're very busy. Hollywood is always blowing up your phone, and so here you are at the stock market with me, man. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And listen, I can go through all of your movies. Best Man series, Girl Trip, Roll Bounce, Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins, and I know you maybe not like the title as much, but one of my favorites is Undercover Brother.
Okay.
Like, I love that film, man. It was so funny. I saw it at a young age, and I thought it was just brilliant. So when I think about that film and The Best Man, I'm like, Malcolm D. Lee, I know who that is, man. Yeah.
Thank you very much. No, and Undercover Brother just celebrated its 23rd anniversary.
Wow, congratulations. Yeah. Do you still look at that movie sometimes, Omar?
I haven't seen it in a while. It was one of those movies that it was my second movie, and it was a tough movie, and it really was a kind of like my foray into comedy.
Yeah.
Like what traditional comedy. And so, it was a tough, kind of film to birth.
Yeah.
But, I got the movie that I wanted to make.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, listen, like I said, I watch it all the time, and I wanted to know from you, like, at the top, what was it like working with Billy D. Williams? Like, I mean, people forget he was in that movie, right? What was it like working with the great Billy D. Williams?
It was great. I mean, the entire cast was fantastic. Yeah. Billy D. was great. We know his work. Bingo Long, All Stars.
And Chappelle was in that too, was he?
Dave Chappelle, exactly. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's so funny. Chappelle just told me that Obama looked at that movie, and he said, Dave Chappelle, I love that movie.
It's classic.
And I was like, oh, wow. He said, so he knows your work. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
great.
Listen, we should know your work for The Best Man. I mean, everybody, that's your brand, right? The Best Man.
It is my brand. It's true. It's like, it was not intended to be anything other than, a movie that I was going to make to start my career, and I wasn't planning on doing sequels or certainly not books. But it just so happens that it's a movie that resonates with the fans,
yeah.
And they're very invested in the characters. So I kept on going with it.
Yeah.
It saved me a number of times too.
Yeah, listen, it saved me too, man. I'm telling you, I got my way out of a lot of good stuff watching that movie, just studying the lines and all of that stuff. So it's good, man. But listen, we are at the stock market. You got to give me something, a good stock. What has worked for Malcolm D. Lee over these years? Is something you want to buy?
It's obvious. It's Apple.
Apple,
and Google, of course. I mean, I got Apple back in 2005.
Wow.
Probably should have got it earlier than that, but
Well, 2000, that's a good price though. And if you look at it right now, where it is.
Yeah. And I would say FedEx.
FedEx. Wow.
Yeah.
Why FedEx?
I don't know. I use it, and it's a pretty successful company.
Yeah, most definitely. They say stick to what you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you, I got to buy some Procter and Gamble. I'm using their toothpaste all the time, and the deodorant and everything. I might as well get me some of the stock. It makes sense.
All right, that's a good tip.
Yeah, absolutely. Get some. Soundtrack to 2025, man. I mean, a lot is happening this year. Still got a lot more to go through, 6 months. But what is keeping Malcolm D. Lee motivated? What's keeping you creative with music?
What music? That's an interesting question. I'm not like a new music consumer very much. I mean, although I just listened to Tyler this morning on the treadmill.
Tyler, the Creator?
No, Tyler.
Tyler.
Of Water, Make Me
Oh,
Sweat.
yeah, okay.
From South Africa. I can't. I'm very much an old school.
Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, old school, or a little further?
In that era, I do a little bit of that. I do, old R&B and Stevie Wonder is like my favorite artist.
Yeah.
And like I'll listen to like some jazz like Coltrane, or I was listening to Nat King Cole because that's in a new movie I'm working on. So it's it varies.
Yeah, Miles Davis kind of blew best jazz album of all time.
Yeah, my dad would say the same thing.
Yes, your dad was a jazz musician.
That's right. And is a jazz musician
Yeah,
still, you know, still alive.
Yeah, that's good, man. Listen, if you walk into a third grade class, they have no idea who Malcolm D. Lee is. They says,
They probably don't.
what is it that you do, Mr. Lee? Do you tell them I make movies and that's what do you
Primarily, that's what I say. I make movies,
Yeah.
and then I'll say I'll write and direct, and and then I'll start going through because I've been in some third grade classes and just say, okay, what do you need to make a movie? And
Yeah.
we start the discussion like that, and they're very engaged in that debate. But yeah, I primarily think of myself as a filmmaker, and I think even more so that a storyteller. I was a writer first. Working for my cousin very early on, he used to say write black film and write stories. So, I think if I hadn't written anything, I wouldn't have gotten to direct anything. So. I think I'm primarily a writer and a storyteller first.
Yeah, you may get this question a lot. People say, well, what's Spike Lee like? What's Spike Lee like? But I'll ask you like this. If you had to describe your cousin in one word, what word would you use?
Unique.
Unique. Why unique? Well, I shouldn't even answer that. You could just look at him and tell Spike's unique.
I mean,
right?
listen, he has a very unique place in the world, in the world of filmmaking. He has been responsible for so many careers, including mine, or at least the start of so many people's careers. I'm grateful that he's in the world and that he's still getting his props and his flowers.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, listen, my whole childhood from She's Gotta Have It all the way through. Inside Man, Spike has made his imprint on film, Hollywood, television, and so have you. So, but I'm glad that you're here too, man, because again, The Best Man, that helped shape I feel like my adult life going into it, right? Because it gives you such those classics. And me and my friends still talk about that, the card scene and all that. And here you are, we jump into some new news, writing another book, all right? The Best Man, Unfinished Business. And you're partnering with our good friends at Storehouse Voices and Ms. Chapman and her company, partnership with Penguin Random House. Co-writer Jane Allen is with this book. So you're picking back up with Harper, Jordan, and Robin, right? Take me inside of The Best Man, Unfinished Business.
Well, the impetus behind it was really I thought I was done, with these stories and with these characters. But, I've always wanted to write a novel, or at least, try my hand at novel writing. And I said, well, this is my brand, as you noted earlier. And, what better way to make that foray into start with these characters that are, and a lot of people felt like at the end of Final Chapters, which was on Peacock, a series on Peacock, the people were like, oh, we want more. What happened? So I'm giving them more at this point. So, when we meet Harper, he's at I wouldn't say a crossroads, but he's doing very well, financially and. He's living in
last
Dumbo.
time we checked him, he had that nice house. Apparently,
Well, now he's got another place, and he's living that bachelor life.
Yeah.
But he's divorced and feeling a little kicked out of his life.
Yeah.
Wants back in. Robin is enjoying her life in Ghana, in Accra, with her young daughter. And then Jordan has moved from New York, and she's living in Malibu and trying to figure things out. She's getting into her own self-care.
Yeah.
So they're all kind of, at I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis, but they're at midlife and they're trying to figure out what their next steps are.
How do they want the rest of their lives to be?
That's exactly right.
Who they want to be with.
Who they want to be and who they want to be with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, listen, it only makes sense, and I haven't gotten through all of it, that Jordan and Harper sometimes end up together. When you decide to close this, it has to be like that Family Matters. Remember they waited to the end till they finally let you see that Laura and Steve was going to get together? It's damn, you only took me 12 years. You're not going to take people through that journey, right? They want to get back together.
That's how you get people to stay interested, I think, when we were crafting the final chapters, the timing wasn't right, with Harper and Jordan. Perhaps the timing is right, in Unfinished Business. Yeah. And we have 2 more books that are gonna, still tell that story.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a 3-part series, so it's a lot that you got to get through, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But I think fans of the book, fans of the television show and the franchise, I think will enjoy this book very much. Particularly if they're readers. Even if they aren't readers, I think they're gonna enjoy it. Yeah. And even people who haven't, experienced The Best Man, I think will enjoy the book as well.
Is it different writing a movie script compared to a book, or is it all the same thing?
Oh, no,
it's right up, it says Act 1's right there.
It's very different,
What's different about it?
There's a number of things that aren't restrictive when it comes to novel writing. You can create worlds. You can, put them, in different cities.
Yeah.
You can, you know, have things be more explicit than you were in a movie. Like, you know, there's a lot more freedom, I think, in novel writing than there is to screenwriting, because there's always things you have to compromise on with making movies or making television shows. You know, whether it's, you know, budgetary or actors or executives feeling like they want to put their 2 cents in or whatever. Really, it was me, my co-writer Jane, and my editor, and you know, we are the ones that are creating it. And like, you know, I have the final say. I mean, I primarily have the final say in movies and television as well, but you know, with books, it's very different. There's a lot more freedom.
Yeah, and I'm talking that freedom you get again to create your own world, but like, you know, I'm a writer myself, and it is tedious, right? Did you have to put it down one time? Like, I can't do this. This is a lot.
Not really. You know, I enjoyed the process, and having, you know, Jane, who's an experienced author, you know, kind of help shape the story and, you know, ask the right questions and, you know, give the right challenges. I thought, oh, this is a joy, really. And it was really the thing that I was finding. I had to go to Ghana because a big part of the story takes place in Ghana. I'd never been to Ghana before.
So you went over there?
I went over there.
Book?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah. To just, you know, immerse myself in the culture. It was only like, you know, I was only there for like a week, but I got a very good sense of the place and asked a lot of questions and met a lot of people, and so that was very important for the authenticity of the storytelling. But no, I never felt like, I mean, I definitely felt it was a lot, because it was mostly about deadlines, you know, not so much like, oh my God, when am I going to get through this? It was more about, you know, how am I going to tell the story in a finite amount of time? And we wrote it very, very quickly, you know, in considering. But you know, it was an enjoyable process. I want to do it again. We're going to do it again.
I was just saying, you're under contract for 2 more. You got to do it again.
Yeah, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I will do it again. And it's been, you know, it's an interesting challenge, and one that I want to, you know, keep doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, take me inside of, you know, again, why you decided to partner with Storehouse Voices. You could have went in any, you know, author or any publisher. You're Malcolm D. Lee. You could have just got it done. Why?
Well, you know, there were some other suitors that were interested, but you know, they seemed to have the vision for it. They appreciated what I was trying to do, what I was trying to say. You know, they gave us, you know, kind of like the most freedom, and just felt like, you know, like seemed like they were the ones who were most behind what I was trying to accomplish. So, you know, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking at the entire brand, right? And I know I was listening to this podcast you did a while ago. It took you a while to accept this as your brand, because you wanted to stop. And I know how hard it is to get people in the same room. And I know the Best Man Holiday, you were saying how much people, you said, hey, this is a want-to project. No, I don't want to do it, then we're going to leave what it was. So, you know, but getting people in one room at one time, especially all these actors, Terrence Howard, Morris Chestnut, and Nia Long, like, it's very, very difficult, I'm sure. Let me ask you by saying, is the film done? Like, is it over, or are we going to see, like, Best Man, Next Generation of a whole new set of actors coming out, and maybe their kids get married, right? And they got to come back together. I saw your idea. That's my idea. I saw it.
These are all interesting ideas.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying never. You know, I think maybe 2 years ago I probably would have said no, over. But you know what? Life happens, things change. You know,
I'll help you write it if you want. I'm a writer.
Okay. Well, let's you know, we'll exchange. We'll exchange some stocks.
Most definitely.
And you know, we collaborate.
Give me some of your Apple stock. We'll call it even.
Oh wow.
I like it.
It's
right?
like that.
Listen, man, I'm sure that thing has grown over the years, so I think that'll be a fair amount. Plus,
Hey,
I can pass that off to I can bequeath it to my daughter.
Hey, I got three kids in college, man.
That's what I'm saying. I only want a couple of shares, just a few shares.
Okay, well, this conversation is going in a different place. But in terms of, you know, whether or not there'll be more Best Men, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's possible. If I have, you know, I think there's a story to tell, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, you know, I certainly, after the first movie, I didn't want to do a sequel. People were like, oh, let's do a sequel. And I was just like, I didn't want to be a one-trick pony. I don't want people thinking that, oh, that's the only story you could tell. So I had to branch out. And plus, I wanted the characters to grow, and I wanted to grow as a human being. And so, like, when we got to Best Man Holiday, it seemed right. And again, at that time, I said, look, here's the story. I pitched it to all of them. We got all together in a restaurant. And I said, look, here it is. And if you want to do it, great. And if you don't, then we had a nice dinner together. But they all were down to do it. And they were also down to do, you know, the next iteration of it.
But were you happy with the Best Man, the final chapters? Like, I mean, I love that series. And then Peacock, I worked at Universal before, so I understand a great company.
Thank you.
NBC. But were you happy with the outcome?
I think it was a challenge that, you know, there's some things that were missing for me. You know, I felt like the series was good. I think I enjoyed the movie process better. I think that the bottom line is that the fans felt satisfied by it.
Yeah.
And so I was very happy with that, you know, and that's who I make the movies for and the television shows for. I thought we owed it to the fans to do it. But I felt like there were some things, we wanted to do 10 episodes. It ended up being only 8. There was a lot of different things that happened behind the scenes that prevented us from doing that. So I said, you know, and once the smoke cleared and the dust settled, I said, well, maybe there's more I can tell, and I said, okay, let's go through it with the book.
Yeah, unfinished business. I mean, like I said, I thought the chapters were fine, man.
Thank you.
You left me there. I was happy with it. Of course, you want to see a better ending, you know, for Harper and Robin. But at the same time, this is what real life is, and this is what makes your story so, like, man, one thing that you said in the past is that how the Best Man kind of came from Wait and Exhale, and how you did not, those men in that movie, right? Those weren't the men you knew.
Right.
And as I look back at that movie, I said, you know, you got a good point, because this ain't Wesley. Wesley Snipes sitting that's Nino Brown. But that's not him, right? And so The Best Man, it's movies like The Best Man, The Wood, The Brothers, of guys I knew, guys I grew up with, and I'm like, yo, this is our lives.
Yeah.
This is us. We go from these young men to career like this is us, and you're missing that. And I take it to LinkedIn because I always like to do this with people. I said, I got Malcolm D. Lee coming up. What would you guys ask him, right? Get out of my own way. And one sister, Erin Washington on LinkedIn, she says, you've done a tremendous job portraying Black fatherhood, and I 100% agree with that. Has the way you've chosen to represent it evolved over the years?
Black fatherhood or black manhood?
Black fatherhood.
I don't think so. I've been pretty consistent. I mean, if you take a look at some of the movies that I've done that you know kind of feature black fatherhood, we go back to Roll Bounce, to the Barbershop that I did, to Space Jam: A New Legacy. Those are all kind of father-son stories. And you know, I think the most consistent thing and the most important thing is to really show, yes, there's going to be conflict between father and son, but at the end of the day, there's love. And dad, or the dad saying to a son, "I love you," or a son saying to his father, "I love you," is important to see, is important to hear. I think, you know, that's something that's certainly consistent. I haven't, you know, made a change in that yet. And certainly, you know, with the Best Man final chapters, that, you know, Lance is struggling with his, you know, own religion and faith, you know, dealing with his own son who's transgender, or his child who's transgender. You know, it was like, you know, or non-binary, I should say. You know, that was a struggle for him. You know, and so like, you had to craft that in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm sure it will evolve as time goes on.
Yeah. Well, I look back, and I went all the way back to 1999, and you had this quote, Washington Post, and it's important to make full black male characters because when we've been vilified, because we've been vilified in the media, not only in Hollywood and television, but by ourselves, that we're violent, misogynistic, criminal, negative lowlives, who don't want to work. Maybe plenty are, but that's not reality. And that was in 1999, right? Is that phrase, is that quote, that theme around the quote about, you know, black male characters, is that missing today in Hollywood?
No, I don't think so. I think that, you know, you've seen it even as recent as this year, you know, with Ryan Coogler's Sinners, you know, is a great representation of black men, you know, on screen. And I think that it's evolving. It's you know, there's always going to be some outliers and always going to be some, you know, negative portrayals, you know, that are out there. And I'm not saying that everything has to be positive. You know,
but is that black corporate exec missing? Like, I look at Boomerang. Boomerang was a movie that was made, and one
of my favorites.
It is. It was intentional, right?
Yes.
And I know people was always like, well, where's all the other people? How can? It's like, wait, there are companies that exist in this world like this, right? And so that black male executive, like that's like again the brothers and the people who've grown, is that missing today? Because I mean, I see the same stuff. I mean, there's the slavery movies, there's the gangster stuff. But I'm missing someone who made
you need the corporate brother on
somebody that's
screen.
doing it that I might see on the train that's working right here in New York.
Right.
I don't feel like there's enough of that represented.
Okay. I mean, listen, I'll give you that. I can't say that like I know every movie that's out there and what's missing. I just know that from my perspective, what I want to choose to represent. And, it is a fullness of, black humanity.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to black men.
Yeah. Well, listen, right fast, because I want to definitely get into your background, but inside the movie business, right? You've been over 3 decades. Again, Spike is your cousin. I think you have a perfect grasp on looking at some of the issues. But what's going on? What's the headwinds, tailwinds? The writer's strike obviously is over. I'm sure it's a little hangover. We have this Gen AI going on. We're talking off camera about the way comedy is perceived in Hollywood right now. Good comedy movie. People still want horror and action, but what do you look at when you're looking at Hollywood in 2025?
Everyone's running scared a little bit. Because of the writer's strike, they're making fewer things. I think they're also hedging their bets on what they feel are surefire things, and there's really no such thing. It's a surefire, hit. You just kind of roll the dice with all these things, whether it's television or movies. And I think it's in a situation right now where it's going to correct itself, and I think it's a great opportunity for independent filmmakers to make a mark. Just like they did in the '70s, and also in the '90s there was a good resurgence of creativity when it came to filmmaking. So I see it as somewhat of a positive. There's an opportunity for a lot of people to do something, and it's also it happens to be, you have to have the right piece of material. Because when I think about how I got into the business, I wrote the right script at the right time with the best man. And that's everything. Timing is everything. When you are trying to put the best elements together and meet it with the right timing. At the time, wedding movies were very popular. And so I said, okay, that's what I have to do. So I think you have to look at what is successful. I always say to young filmmakers, what are you looking at that's successful? What is working in the marketplace? Whether it's on the small screen or the big screen, what's working? Follow that and try to see where you might fit in that niche.
Yeah, is it important for those young filmmakers, if they want to see what's working, to also just get out in the real world? Maybe go around. You just said you went to Ghana, so you can get the full infrastructure of what it was like over there, including the book. Do they have to kind of get off their phone and get out in the real world?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I tell my son who wants to be a filmmaker, you've got to have some experiences. You can't just rely on research and whatever. You have to get out and live life and have some real life, real world experience in order to really tell an authentic story.
Yeah.
So I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, listen, what is Malcolm D. Lee like as a director on a major project? Because I was listening to one that you said being a director is like being a coach. Now, everybody you still need approvals, right? But you're the coach.
Yeah.
What type of coach are you? Are you Greg Popovich on set? Or what type of coach are you on set?
I like a calm environment, right? When I say
like
loose,
Phil Jackson is Zen,
Yeah, I don't like Phil Jackson. I'm not a fan. No disrespect, but no. I don't.
As a New Yorker,
when you've got all the best players on your team, how good of a coach are you, right? So anyway, I digress.
Absolutely.
No, I think for me, I like a calm environment.
Yeah.
I try to be very communicative to all that need to be communicated to towards with the actors, with my director of photography, with my costume designer. Just make sure that that I'm clear about what I want, so that they can help me achieve my vision.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do, is you have to be a leader. And it's that you don't get that by yelling and screaming. You get that by letting people do their jobs and having expectations of people. And so I try to just I try to let people do their job, but I'm also very demanding. I say to everybody, I'm demanding, but I'm not unreasonable.
I like that. Yeah. Well, going into your business portfolio, again, you obviously make movies and you make a lot of money from that, right? Nice suit. You got an Apple stock. All right, so you make a lot of money from that. But you also own a bourbon line. We just talked Sable, right?
Yes.
Take me inside of the spirits business, man. That's a competitive space. We got our good friend Fawn Weaver. Beyonce has hers.
Yeah.
Meg Thee Stallion, I heard she has hers. Hers pretty good. Everybody's having their own, spirits. And now you are in it along with your co-stars of the movie, Morris Chestnut being one, and all those. But what's the biggest positive surprise about being in the spirits business?
Sable Bourbon is with myself, Morris Chestnut, Harold Perrineau, and Tay Diggs.
Terrence Howard's not in, he's not.
Terrence isn't involved with this. We were going to, but there was a conflict there. But we love Terrence, and we would love to have him involved, and maybe later on he will be.
I could be an investor too. We'll talk about that.
We could discuss it. So it's coming from a very organic place.
Yeah.
The fellas were all like, "Oh, we want to keep working together," and I wanted to work with them as well. They were like, "Well, you're not going to make another movie, so let's do something together." Yeah. So it was Harold's kind of brainchild that said, "Hey, we do a lot of brown liquor drinking in the series and in the movies. Why don't we like try to get into this? So we said, okay, let's do it.
Right.
And when we got with Bespoken Spirits, we approached them. We said we'd like to, put something that kind of encapsulates what the experience people have of watching us on screen, and put it in a bottle.
Yeah.
And so it's been great. We're out there, hitting different cities and hitting different markets, and we love what what's been created, under our name. From the title to the juice itself, to the font, to the messaging. It's all us. It's all
why
us.
Sable? What came from?
Well, the name is just like, it's very simple. It's elegant. It means black, but it also is like, elevated a sense of that. Like, a Sable. Tay Dick saying Sable, are you able? He's doing all kind of songs and stuff. But no, you want to like a kind of a simple name.
Yeah.
And something that exemplifies what we're trying to do. It's luxury. There's an elevated status to it as well. So it was a great title. It's the drink itself is a tiny bit sweet, and it goes down easy. It's very smooth, and you can use it. You can do it straight up, or you can put it in a cocktail.
Did you bring some?
I should have.
Yeah, you should.
But I'm gonna get you a
We have
bottle.
cups and everything.
I'll get you a bottle. It's still too early in the day to be drinking.
Absolutely.
And I gotta go back to work.
Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, man, take me back, right? You grew up obviously right here in New York, Brooklyn. And your mom was a medical records administrator, your dad also musicianing in jazz, and a school teacher, if I'm not mistaken, right? What'd you learn from your parents?
Hard work.
Hard work.
They try to put me in, or they stressed to me education, right? That was going to be my leg up, as a black man in America, that I was going to have to work, twice as hard. So they put me in private school where they could, what they could afford, and really about just trying to try and do my best and be better than my peers. Yeah. It was mostly about hard work and also having some aspirations for myself.
Yeah. What about on a Saturday, like when you're a kid in pajamas, digging up your nose, you get up in the morning, right?
I never dug in my nose.
Everybody did when they were a kid. Come on, Malcolm. Well, when you go downstairs, what are you watching on TV? What's the cartoons you're watching, right?
Let's see. I started very early, like 6 o'clock in the morning. Started with Minnie Mouse. And Courageous Cat. And then went to, who was next on the hit list? I can't remember, but it was Super Friends, the Warner Brothers, Looney Tunes, eventually the X-Men. I love watching cartoons, but as soon as my parents got up, it was like time to polish the furniture, clean the bathrooms,
Couldn't go outside until you did it.
Oh yeah, chores had to be done. And then it was not like, hanging out inside. It was like, get out the house, go play ball, go hang out with your friends, do something. You can't stay in the house all day. But
then you end up at HBCU, you end up at Georgetown. Your parents wanted you to go to HBCU. You end up at Georgetown. A part of your journey I found very interesting is that Disney Screenwriters program that you did, right? What did that teach you before you went on to NYU Film School? What did that teach you in that Disney Screenwriters program?
It was more about not so much learning how to write, because I didn't know how to write then, and they would try to teach me or tell me how to write in the development stuff, but I wasn't really listening to it. I was a little bit arrogant, a little bit cocky, and a little bit like not really, just immature. But what it taught me a lot was about relationships and the business, and that's what the film industry, and I imagine a lot of industries are about relationships, and how you interact with people, and how you come off to people, and how you stay in contact with folks. And I think that was like the biggest thing. And also having the opportunity to write, right? Like you got to sit at home and just do nothing. This is before like the internet and go into like, Starbucks cafes and stuff to like, sit down and like write my, my amazing script. I was at home like staring at a computer, and you can't, that's totally ineffective. You have to have, again, life experiences, and then you can, have something to write about. And so I learned a lot about the industry, and again about relationships and and trying to maximize those.
Yeah, I mean, Spike was in your life; he was your cousin and all. But here you are again, trying to do it on your own, right? You got the screenplays, Morningside prep, right, about your experiences, and then you have gems, right? Georgetown Ebony Man, right? That's something that you wrote. But as you're crafting these
Where did
scripts,
you get this research? This is amazing. I'm amazed by this. Who gave you all this information?
Where are you getting? What are you learning about yourself when you're putting together these scripts? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you learning? You take me back to that particular.
You know, the Morningside Prep was about my experiences being at a predominantly white prep school in New York City. I went to Packer Collegiate Institute in Brooklyn Heights. I also went to the day school, which is known as Trevor Day School now. I'm on the board there now. And, you know, I really wanted to, you know, draw from my own experiences, you know, and see what that like. I thought my story of being one of the only ones, really the only black male in my class from the 9th grade, I'm sorry, from the 5th grade until the 12th grade, and what that unique experience was when you know, growing up as a adolescent, and, you know, how your identity is tied to your race. And then, you know, writing Gems was like my, you know, like, oh, this is like a college-based story based on like a lot of the friends that I had made and stuff like that. But these were not like good scripts in terms of structure. They were interesting characters, they were interesting dialogue, but that doesn't make a good script. You have to write, you know, a 3-act structure story.
Well, what does make a good script?
You have to have, first of all, you know, you have to have those things, those elements, but you have to have a 3-act structure. You have to have an inciting incident. You have to have a magic prop. You have to have a setting that people are familiar with. I think you have to, you know, tell an original story that's compelling and that has propulsion. And so after like those 2 scripts, and I wrote another one when I was in Disney program, and wrote 2 more before I got to writing The Best Man. You know, I was very deliberate and intentional about what I was writing with Best Man. I was looking at the, you know, at the industry. I was looking at, you know, what I thought I could, you know, bring to the industry. And I said, okay, it's a story that's gonna take place over a wedding weekend. It's a reunion. It'll be a 3-act structure naturally because it's gonna take Friday, Saturday, Sunday. These things, these trappings of a wedding and a reception and bachelor party, all gonna be part of the set pieces that you're gonna make. Magic prop is the book that Harper's written that gets passed around their friends. And if somebody finds out, then it's gonna be curtains for the, you know, so there's a lot of things that you say, okay, but that comes from having a lot of trial and error with other screenplays. And so once I understood that, and, you know, and again, have experience and talked to professors at NYU Film School, and, you know, watching movies and listening to filmmakers talk about how they've crafted screenplays and whatnot, you start to, you know, figure out, okay, what is the thing that I can tell, and what's going to be something that the studios will want to see. Now, I tried to make my own movie as an independent filmmaker. In fact, I wrote Best Man to sell it. I wasn't trying to even direct it. I was going to use the money that I made to write or to direct another movie that I had written, which was going to be, you know, in the vein of Annie Hall and When Harry Met Sally, like a great New York love story. But, you know, I was midway through writing Best Man, and I was like, oh, I could direct this.
Yeah.
And so it just happened to be that I was going the studio route, and I had a much more, you know, kind of commercial sensibility than an indie filmmaker does have, even though I try to be an artist.
Yeah, you were age 27 at the time, and, you know, Spike obviously takes it to Columbia and Universal, and you see that $9 million budget, right? But before that, there was a confidence thing that you hit, and I wanted to see if it meant anything to you. But on the set of Girl 6, when you found your own confidence, man, when you suggested to your cousin to use a different lens, right? When you were shooting a certain thing, and obviously he was maybe rejecting at first, but then he came around to it, right? And you thought that was going to open up a career, and then you didn't get onto the He Got Game set, but, you know, but that forced you. But that confident moment, did that kind of like put jet fuel in you when you finally did listen to something?
Well, that was a great moment because, you know, I had been his assistant on Clockers, and then when I got to be work on Girl 6 as well, you know, I was just, you know, observing how he used the camera and how he framed shots, and, you know, that taught me a lot. You know, that was like you know, working on, particularly on Clockers, that was like a year of film school that summer. And so, you know, I was there, and I made the suggestions. Are you gonna? It wasn't even a suggestion. I said, I asked the question, are you gonna, like, you know, do a longer lens on this too? And he was like, nah. And then, like, you know, he got through that setup, and then he was like, hey, Malik, change the lens. And I was like, So, like, I had something to contribute. I had something that, you know, was of value. And I've always said from that moment on, like, I'll take a good idea from anywhere, right? sometimes people will make suggestions to me, and I'll say like, I don't like that. And then I'll think about it and be like, oh, maybe that's not such a bad idea.
Right.
I don't know that it necessarily put jet fuel in me. I think not getting on He Got Game did it, because he was like, look, I gave you a number of shots over the years, Malcolm. Somebody else's turn.
Yeah.
You can't really go much further working under me. So
yeah, I thought it was revenge because you wanted the basement and he had to get kicked out of the basement, and so that's when Spike was forced to get kicked out of your house.
It
right?
wasn't forced. He was just, my father made it clear, like, hey,
But he wouldn't have done that if you didn't say that. I went in my own room. And then,
no, don't put that on me. That wasn't me. That was my brother and I had to separate.
So listen, when I say these names, you tell me the first thing that comes to mind. John Singleton. One word.
Inspirational.
Inspirational.
I will say, can I say this just real quick? As much as I worked with Spike, it was the summer of 1991 when I saw Boys in the Hood that said to me, I can write my own story. I can tell my story. After seeing that movie. And even though it was very different, Best Man and Boys in a very different movie.
John was telling his stories.
It was his story, and I was like, oh, I can do it too. So that was inspirational.
Yeah. Ryan Coogler.
Oh, man. Visionary.
Visionary, love it. Barry Jenkins.
Oh, boy. Also visionary, like just innovative.
Innovative, love it. Will Packer.
My brother.
That's two, but I'll take that. Woody Allen.
Boy, complicated.
Curse of the Jade Scorpion, man. Anything else, man? I mean,
complicated because he's one of my favorite filmmakers, but obviously a lot of issues.
Yeah, but
behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. But what's in the future for you, man? I mean, I know you got this horror/thriller that you're kind of working on.
Yeah. I'm doing this movie with Blumhouse and Universal. It's my first foray into doing a thriller. I'm not a horror guy, but it's a thriller. So it has suspense, and it's I've been wanting to branch out and not just be known for doing comedy, even though comedy is great. It's not really getting people in the seats these days. But I was like, it was a script that spoke to me, and I said, well, let me see what we've got, and it's a great cast. We've got Lynn Whitfield and Chloe Bailey and Anna Diop and Lucien Laviscount.
Jabari Young. Yeah.
Are you in this movie too?
Yeah, I could be.
Wow.
Make me the offer.
I'm gonna make you an offer. You just don't want to just show up and just.
Nah, I mean, listen, you got some Sable now.
maybe no. So no, that's coming up probably sometime early next year. Yeah. I've got the book coming out. We're gonna start writing the second one very soon.
I feel honored. I got this early too, man.
Yeah, well, give it a read.
I am.
If you liked the Best Man movies, you will love this book.
Yes, I'm sure. I mean, you haven't let me down yet.
Oh, good.
And so, like I said, Roscoe home, welcome home, Ross. I haven't seen Scary Movie 5.
Good,
so, yeah.
good. Keep that off your playlist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody needs to see that ever.
Yeah. But listen, as we wrap up here, man, I wanted to get your advice from a young filmmaker. I mean, I know we kind of talked about getting out in the world, but I see a lot of young brothers and sisters who are trying to make films, some of which maybe have a hard way to go. Distribution options all out there, right? Tubi, anything. But what is your advice so that way those young filmmakers can, find their way?
I think, like anything, you have to perfect your craft. Yeah. And not to necessarily be perfect at it, but you have to work at it. Things don't happen overnight. You have to keep working at it. If you're going to write, you got to keep writing. You got to rewrite. You got to, if you want to make movies, make the movies. It has never been easier, way easier than when I was trying to make movies. Most people have a smartphone. You can make a movie with that. You got to get, you got to know what your strengths are. And there's more than one way to just be like, oh, what kind of filmmaker do you want to be? Do you want to be a producer? Do you want to be a writer? Do you want to be a director? Do you want to be all three? Do you want to be an editor? Editing is extremely important. And we need more black editors in the industry, Like, people need to, know what their strengths are, what they're good at. I mean, it's fine to pursue your dreams, but you also have to be realistic and also pursue what you're good at.
Yeah, most definitely. And within that, right, it's a business within it.
That's right.
What is your advice about handling the business as a film writer, as a?
Yeah, it's like I've been saying in this conversation, part of, what I learned in going to Disney was learning about relationships and learning about the business itself. You have to have one ear or an eye in commerce and one in creativity. And I think you can try to tell the story that you want to tell, but it's also important to see what's successful out there. What are people responding to? A lot of times I'll pitch things that are before their time, but it's all about timing. What's doing really well right now? What is the industry going to respond to? And by the way, sometimes you don't have to wait on the industry. Find a way to make your movie however you're going to make it. Like John Singleton said, no one cares about your little movie but you. So you have to be the person that's going to have to, make it happen.
Yeah, I love that. Get you out of here on some fun stuff, man. Really rapid stuff. I think I know how you made your first million, unless you tell me wrong. But I think it's through Hollywood and movies. Maybe through something called The Best Man, right? Right, $1 million.
I don't think I made $1 million.
Oh, okay. Well,
other people made millions, not me.
Building that brand, though, it helps
Yes.
you. But how did you spend your first million?
Real estate.
Real estate.
So
you own one of these buildings in the back?
Not even close. No. We bought a house early, and that's, I think, important. Buying a house. I'm sure I got a car.
Ferrari?
No, God, no.
Okay, I'm sorry, a Lamborghini.
I'm so conservative when it comes to that. Like, I think my first car was.
You do not have no Ford Taurus.
It was a Jeep.
Okay.
It was a Jeep.
Drop top?
A Cherokee. No.
Okay.
It was a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Sunroof?
No. It was, yes, there was a sunroof. There was a sunroof.
Come on, you got to treat yourself.
And a CD player,
Wow.
I was balling.
Wait, what is that? CD player. I don't even know what that is.
And I think, that and maybe some better looking clothes. I mean, probably.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
But not the Apple stock, not there yet.
No. And then it started to build a family.
Yeah, most definitely. So no regrets at all. Not even a Jeep.
I mean, I wouldn't call them regrets. I would call them, just learning experience. What is it? You either win or you learn something.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's
what I
a
mean?
win-win at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Outlook stuff. When you hear Gen AI, or just AI in general, what does no one talk about in your industry? And I ask you that because I read this frightening Wall Street Journal headline, right? And it says AI is learning to escape human control. And this is the first line of it. An artificial intelligence model did something last month in May 2025 that no machine was ever supposed to do. It rewrite its own code to avoid being shut down. So when you hear AI, what is no one talking about in your industry?
It's like the Terminator, man. Like they said, this machine's gonna take over.
I just saw that movie for the first time like 2 weeks ago.
What?
I wanted to go back and watch it because if this is our future, I want to be prepared for it.
Listen, I saw Mission Impossible yesterday, and I was like, it was entertaining, but it was also a little bit scary.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid yet, but I'm definitely. It's something that is concerning for sure. But AI cannot tell a story. They can't put in the human experience.
They won't need to. They'll be running the Earth.
Well, don't say that. They're listening right now.
I know. That's why I turn my voice thing off all the time.
I'm trying not to be a doomsday person, but I also want to be smart about things and try to be looking at things as they come.
Yeah, most definitely. Black Outlook, Nielsen says Black America spending power will reach $2.1 trillion by 2026. When you hear that figure, what comes to mind?
Support Black business.
Yeah.
And consolidate look, it's very important that, particularly at this time now, that we do that we, finally get to a place where, like, it's not so much that, the other man's ice is colder. Like, we have just cold ice, right?
That's right.
Support each other, and there's so much power, and then people will listen to us.
Yeah.
In a way that they're not right now.
Yeah. Look around the world. What country do you invest in right now? Throw your money there right now. Africa.
Ghana.
Wow. Love it. 3 books that inspire you to perform your best or motivate you outside of The Best Man Unfinished.
When I find a book that I like, I start to obsess over it.
Yeah.
And so, like, right now nothing's coming to
That's cool. We'll talk about it on set of when you hire me.
Oh, yes, of course.
There we go. I'm speaking into existence.
That's the power of positive thinking.
That's what I'm saying, man. Get you out of here on this, man. Good to Great, always into conversations like this. Jim Collins' business book, Good to Great. Love that book. What is the difference between a good director and a great one?
I think you have to know what you want. People say about me that I know what I want, and I think that helps, get your day going. It helps, to communicate that to your actors, to your crew. Good directors, you can have like the most amazing shot that you want to put together, right? But it's going to take like, half the day, and then you got like 4 other pages that you have to direct. Things are going to suffer. So I think, for me, and I consider myself a good director. I'm trying to be great. But yeah, I think knowing what you want is half the battle, and having a very clear vision and being very communicative.
Yeah, I consider you a wonderful director and a wonderful author as well. Best Man, Unfinished Business. Malcolm, we got to come back and do this again, man. I'm sure there's going to be plenty to talk about when you come out with your suspense movie, right? And then again,
Let's make it happen.
That's what I'm saying. And we talk about my cameo and all of that, man. It's so much unfinished business that we got to talk about. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the time. It's been an honor for me to come up and, meet and talk to you, man. One of the best movies I've ever made, one of the best franchises. So thank you for taking the time to spend all that time in your parents' basement to write that script. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Malcolm D. Lee, the Enterprise Zone. Thank you for watching.